Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, indeed. It has very much to do with the Russian-European-US relations rather than the Ukrainian-Russian relations, which we, of course, shouldn't underestimate. In principle, on one hand, we see that Russia is trying to pacify their relations with the United Europe and within the United States. The signing of Northern Stream pipeline actually is like a step forward the normalization of the relations between their, let me put it like Russia, China, Iran bloc vis-a-vis the Western bloc, which inside the Western bloc we see the Pacific sort of a mutual or looking for a mutual understanding between the United States and United Europe. On the other hand, Europe is very much disappointed with what is going on the Belarusian, Lithuanian, Polish border, and it's also defined both in Washington and in Moscow as a sort of a factor which might pose additional problem to the relations between two capitals. In this situation, from Kiev, we hear declarations that the West is once again, like it was in the history, in the past in the history, is going to use Ukrainian card in their own interest and the expense of Ukrainian interests to come to an agreement with Russia on the gas issue or maybe other or in more strategic point of view, geostrategical issues. And from this point of view, for Zelensky, Ukrainian president, whose rating is decreasing, by the way, according to the recent polls, is very much interested to show to everybody, but first of all to its own population, as well as to Moscow, that the West and the United States, first of all, still stands behind Kiev and would do anything in its power in order to stop Russian aggression.
And along
with
those
quotations mark or without quotation marks.
Looking at
that is why Ukraine welcomed the American Navy drill in Mediterranean. On the other hand, Russia showed that on one hand it's not going to be a side of Ukrainian of the conflict between Ukrainian and Donbass, but on the other hand, Russia will not limit itself. It's just a declaration. What would going to be in practice? I would say that, according to Mr. Putin, they're still watching and searching the situation rather than making effective steps. In Kiev, they define the recent steps of Moscow in absolutely different way, like a sort of a training before the aggression on the behalf of their East Ukrainian separatists against Ukraine.
Looking at the recent example of 2014, let's say here, and the largely inaction by the United States in the face of what at that time was a highly armed, uniformed troops with no insignia suddenly appearing in eastern Ukraine. What if that happens again? What is this administration, White House administration, likely to do?
Well, in principle, this administration is going to pull out American forces from all the hot points, as we know, both in the Middle East and Afghanistan and from East European theater, let us put it like military theater. On the other hand, the United States, that's for sure, is still interested to reassure its role as the leader of the Western world, especially in the situation when there is a conflict, where there is a conflict between two new poles of the global politics, Washington and Beijing, and of course, each country should found its own side in this global conflict. It's far from being a Cold War of 1970s, 1980s style. However, each country should choose, choose its side, whether in an American bloc or Beijing, Moscow, Iranian bloc. There are countries that are trying to find to balance between. By the way, Turkey, if we come back for a second to this military drill, it was hotly condemned from the side of the Turkish government. Still, we understand that, big boys would come to a sort of understanding, at least at the moment. Nobody is interested to transfer the Cold War or the sort of a semi-Cold War into a hot conflict. Still, taking our experience here in the Middle East, I would say that we have nothing to do but watch carefully what is going on and what will be the further step. Meantime, all the mutual understandings, for example, between Jerusalem and Washington on one hand, and Jerusalem and Moscow and Kiev on the other hand, are still in order. And I think it's a piece of good news.
Certainly high stakes standoff here between world powers. Ze'ev Khanin, thanks for breaking that down for us.